He's called this programme Old Country Stomp.
In 1936, a veteran banjo player, Jimmy Struthers, recorded for the Library of Congress at the Lynn State Farm, Virginia, a solo he called "I Thought I Heard My Banjo Say." It was a typical country breakdown, known in many white hillbilly versions as Cripple Creek, one item in the shared tradition of rural dance music known to both whites and blacks.
Going to Cripple Creek, going down, leave Cripple Creek, going to Rome. Leave Cripple Creek, gather up Cripple Creek, shooting off head, don't eat nothing but fish and bread. Don't eat. Banjo said, thought I had my banjo, thought I had my banjo, said I'm going to Cripple Creek, going down, leave Cripple Creek, going to Rome. Going to Cripple Creek, when I feel roll my britches up to my knees, I'm going to Cripple Creek, when I... My banjo sang, leave on Cripple Creek. Any man with common sense, so them soldiers of the fence. Banjo sang, my banjo said, oh yeah, my banjo sang. Leave old Cripple Creek, nickel worth carriage, dime worth a lot, gonna leave his town for times getting hard. My banjo say, gather up tree trees, shooting off head, don't eat nothing but fish and bread. Oh yeah, my banjo say, I'm going to Cripple Creek, leave Cripple Creek, read and run, nigga, read and run. Drinking whiskey, drinking beer, don't let sundown get you here.
In the slavery period and after, black musicians played for white dancers, learning their tunes and earning a little spending change. A boy could make a banjo out of a gourd or pan and a broomstick, in the days when playing music, rather than the phonograph or the ghetto blaster, was every black child's ambition. If he hadn't an instrument, he improvised one. Wash Wilson, an ex-slave, recalled that they'd take a buffalo horn and scrape it out to make a flute. That'd sure be heard a long ways off. They'd take a mule's jawbone and rattle a stick across the teeth. Or they would make some other instrument. In my childhood, I saw many sorts of quills, wrote Thomas Talley of Fisk University in 1920. The quills were short reed pipes, closed at one end, made from cane found in our southern cane brakes. They were whittled with a jackknife and then wedged into a wooden frame, and the player blew them with his mouth. Henry Thomas, a Texas singer who was born in 1874, recorded this old country stomp, calling sets and giving instructions to the dancers in couplets, accompanying himself on both guitar and quills. calling sets to the tunes of Sourwood Mountain or Old Joe Clark was common to the dances of both races, but black dancers were noted for their solo dancing, cutting capers in bewildering loose-limbed jigs, the 19th century equivalent of breakdancing. Charles Dickens witnessed in New York the spectacular black dancer Juba, whose performance was electrifying as he did, to quote, the double shuffle, single shuffle, cut and cross-cut, snapping his fingers, rolling his eyes, turning in his knees, presenting the backs of his legs to the front, spinning on his toes and heels, dancing, as Dickens observed, with wire legs and no legs at all. Sometimes solo dancers performed on a wooden box to amplify the drumming of their feet, or they spread sand over the floorboards to do a shuffle. Some dances imitated bird movements, like the buck and wing, which involved holding the neck stiffly while hopping with syncopated steps and flapping outstretched arms to stop time. That buck dance was played by Mance Lipscomb, a Texas sharecropper who was born in 1895 and who'd played for dances since he was a boy. Of course, he couldn't read music.
I started out myself, just heard it, our music. And anybody didn't learn me nothing. I just picked it up myself. Air music, I don't know any notes, I just know by air. And I've been playing just about 49 years. My pa was a fiddler. He's an old professional fiddler. All of my people can play some kind of music.
Mance's background was typical of his generation, with roots to his music which went well back in the 19th century. In spite of his technical accomplishment, he was strictly a weekend musician. For Blind Blake, it was different. As a sightless musician, he had to live by his playing. In spite of his disability, he travelled from Florida to Detroit, by way of Georgia and Kentucky, playing for construction camp dances, perfecting his relaxed technique by competing with other musicians. Here he plays a typical dance with the suspensions and stop time that permitted displays of inventive footwork. An unknown player of the rattlebones accompanies him on Dry Bone Shuffle.
Let's go, Bourne. This big Bourne. Do it a long time. Just like getting money from home. That's the way I like it. Let them bones, boy. boy.
Several of the dances performed by blacks were written down and published at the close of the 19th century. Some were animal imitations like the elephant squat, the grizzly bear, or the turkey trot. Others were notable for their novelty steps, like the bombaché, the pas malin, or falling off a log. They enjoyed a popularity which moved from coloured hops and low-down dives to the more raffish urban dance halls. A black composer, Ernest Hogan, published the pas malin in 1895 with words that referred to a number of these dances. It slipped back into the folk idiom, and a Mississippi singer, Jim Jackson, incorporated it into one of his recordings made over 30 years later.
I'm going down to my girl's house to a big dance. After the dance, we're gonna have a big crap game. Now listen, I'll tell you all about it. Now, point, sing, honey, is the bumblebee. Oh, turn around, go the other way. Do the world fair. The turkey top, oh, don't that girl think she's very hot. She puts her hand on her head and let her mind move on. Back, way back, look at this soft boat. She dances nicely and politely. It's them to pass some laugh. Now, people, we down at the crap game.
Jim Jackson, Blind Blake, Mance Lipscomb, they all played guitar. Cheap guitars were manufactured by Gibson in the 1890s, and the mail-order companies responded. By 1908, Sears Roebuck were marketing a standard guitar, complete with extra strings and a chord book, for less than $2. The guitar was well suited to the slides and shuffles of black dances of the day. Rural dances weren't subtle affairs, and the music was rugged and often coarse-grained. Pegleg Howell's gang was a vital, if raw, band, which played for dimes in the streets of Atlanta and for barbecues in rural Georgia. Its recording of Turkey Buzzard has the syncopated swing that black dancers liked, but the tune was based on an old favourite that was known in the 1830s, Turkey in the Straw. In the vocal, they make reference to another old dance tune, Sugar in the Gourd, and the hoochie coochie, the belly dance that caused such a scandal at the Chicago World's Fair of 1893. Pegleg Howell played guitar on that item. The alley fiddle was Eddie Anthony's. A good fiddle player would be in demand for both black and white dances. He might even be invited to play with the white musicians. The skill was passed on through families, and some formed their own string bands, like the Bookers of Black Ridge, Jessamine County in Kentucky. James Booker Sr. was born in 1837 and was a noted fiddler before the Civil War. His son Jim, born in 1872, followed his style, and other brothers were also musicians. Jim Booker led the family orchestra, but he also worked with a white banjo player, Marion Underwood, and even recorded with a white string band, Taylor's Kentucky Boys. On Grey Eagle, Jim Booker plays brilliantly in the hoedown style normally associated with the white string bands. Grey Eagle by the mixed black and white group Taylor's Kentucky Boys. A smoother style was adopted by the Mississippi Sheiks, a black string band from Jackson, Mississippi. It was a large family band, more than a dozen musicians in all. Each member played several instruments. Brothers Bo, Lonnie, Edgar and Harry all played violin. With the string band they augmented their meagre earnings as tenant farmers on the depressed plantation and gained a statewide reputation. Bo, as Bo Carter, recorded blues with his guitar. So did the family's adopted brother, Walter Vinkson. Lonnie Chapman plays fiddle and Walter plays guitar and sings the vocal on the Mississippi Sheiks recording of the Jazz Fiddler. Sings Walter, "We got the fiddle, shake the bow, this is the tune all fiddlers ought to know. It's too bad. Boy, this is something you've never seen. A man playing jazz on a violin."
No fooling now. Listen here, people gonna play a little tune. It's the jazz violin of the Mississippi tune. It's too bad, it's too. Listen to that old violin. Pick up your fiddle and take up your bow. This is a tune all fiddlers ought to know. It's too bad, it's too bad.
Was this something you never have seen? A man play jazz on a violin. It's too bad it's too. Listen to that old violin. A quick finger and a shaking bow. A super heel and a tickle toe. It's too bad it's too bad. You never have seen a man play jazz on a violin. It's too bad it's too. Listen to that old violin. Quick finger and a shaking bone. A super heel and a tickle toe. It's too bad it's too bad.
The Mississippi Sheiks playing the jazz fiddler. When the guitar became popular, banjos and fiddles went somewhat into decline, but in the country districts, string bands continued to thrive with fiddles, mandolins, guitars and basses. There were still hundreds of them in the 1920s playing for dances all over the South, bands like Sid Hemphill's in Mississippi, Willie Walker's in the Carolinas, the Wright Brothers in Texas. But very few were recorded, leaving us with an unbalanced view of black popular music. One of the few that was the Dallas String Band, led by the mandolin player Coley Jones. They played for dances and serenaded in the streets of Dallas, Texas. Like the Mississippi Sheiks, they were among the last representatives of a long tradition, surviving into the 1930s by adapting, with a little ironic humour, to the new blues. Coley Jones's Dallas String Band playing hokum blues. Part of the appeal of blues lay in its suitability for dancing. If the tempo of many blues was leisurely, it was still ideal for slow dragging on the front porch or in the local juke joint. Blues singers may have developed the blues as an expressive and personalised idiom, but they were also accustomed to playing for dances in both country barrel houses and urban rent parties. The influential guitarist Big Bill Brunsey and the equally celebrated pianist Georgia Tom Dorsey play us out with a typical dance piece, urging on the strutting of Jane Lucas. Among the dance steps mentioned in the song and the cheerful banter are the Mississippi Rub, the Shimmy Shake, the Black Snake Wiggle, the Mess Around, and the Snake Hips. At least two of the dances, the Possum Trot and Scratching the Gravel, had been in currency for a century when Come On Mama was recorded in 1930.
Come on, let me do the dopey law. Come on, mama, show me who you are. Come on, mama, do that dance for me. Do the Mississippi Rub, then the Mobile Bay. Turn right around and go the other way. Come on, mama, do that dance for me. Oh, do that dance. Oh, do that dance. Come on, mama, do that dance for me. Oh, do that dance. Oh, do that dance. Come on, mama, do that dance for me.
Say, how you like this step? Watch this shimmy I'm going to shake. How you like this mess around?
Fine.
Now watch me, Bobby Jones. That's kind of late.
Do it for me. Put your hands on your hips, let your mind roll on. All like you did the day you was born. Come on, mama, do that dance for me. Do the Black Snake Wiggle and the Possum Trot. Scratch the gravel in a vacant lot. Come on, mama, do that dance for me. Oh, do that dance. Now do that dance. Come on, mama, do that dance for me. Oh, do that dance. Now do that dance. Come on, mama, do that dance for me.
Say, this is late. Watch these snake hips. What do you think about them?
That's mighty fine, mama.
Watch this slow motion. That's what I got my money on.
I'd rather have mine on a rave hole.
I don't know what you call that.
Mighty fine. Now there's old sister about 70 years old. She don't know to do it, done got cold. Come on, mama, do that dance for me. Now her hair turned gray, and nose turned blue. Someday this thing gonna happen to you. Come on, mama, do that dance for me. Just do that dance. Now do that dance. Come on, mama, do that dance for me. Just do that dance. Oh, do that dance. Come on, mama, do that dance for me.
Come On Mama, recorded in 1930 by Big Bill Brunsey, Jane Lucas and Georgia Tom Dorsey.